Hello and welcome back to the Metropole Grid. My name is Andre.
And I'm Patrick.
And thanks so much for tuning in. The top cut begins of NANPC Montreal. From 34 players showing up on Saturday, we're down to 8. This is
right.
Sunday morning, I think around 11 o'clock. 8 players come in. Now, top cuts are different than single-sided Swiss. So this is double elimination.
That's right.
So in short, these 8 players are going to be playing against each other until they take 2 losses.
Yep.
The last player standing who does not take 2 losses will be the NANPC Montreal champion. It's also notably open deck list, and you can see the pieces of paper up there on the top, so players know every single card in their opponent's deck.
That's correct. And they're allowed to have those pieces of paper next to them at all times?
Yep,
Okay.
always. You can always check it if you want to. So round 1, on the right, we have Terence. Both these players are from the Torsaug grid, but Terence also won NANPC Toronto, that was just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And he is playing Arissana. Now, this is a World Tree Arissana. It's only 47 cards, and notably by the time that this event happened, we did not hit the 24/9 ban list. That did just ban out only exclusively World Tree.
That's correct.
So this list is technically illegal. You'll see how much World Tree is going to matter in this matchup, but this was like one of the great Shaper decks of that past meta. Still a really cool deck, and I'm excited to see Arissana do great stuff. Now, he picked this matchup as a 4th place playing against Erin on the left. We've seen Erin many times already on the channel so far. She has been playing Jinteki almost exclusively for a while now and doing some great Jinteki play.
Yeah, she's also a Toronto player, also a member of the narrative team at Nelson Games alongside myself.
Yeah, we recently saw her top 8 at Canadian Nationals as well, also playing Jinteki. And this was the matchup that Terence chose. This is a bit different than a Jinteki I believe she played at Toronto Nationals. That was more of a like Cambridge trap deck. This is more an acid-based deck. So we're actually looking at things like Hostile Architecture, Bladderword, Cohort Guidance, Reaper Function. Yeah. No snares, still some spiky agendas, but Terence chose this as the matchup he wants to start his day
this
on.
is the one he thinks is going to be the stronger matchup for him.
Yeah, so we'll see how it is. Multi-axis on Shaper side, you have Conduit, but you don't have nice ways to cheat around some of those traps as much as there's no snare. I don't even think we have a cataloger. Sometimes that helps.
No, I don't think so. We do have the trick shots, of course.
Yes, but after a mulligan here, sometimes it's hard to kill Shaper, right? Like, in the modern meta, if you're playing Shaper and you're worried about flatlining, you have a lot of tools. Things like Lily Pad is nice.
Lily Pad, of course. Stone Ship Chart Room.
Yes. Now
you've got ways to get card draw out of sequence.
Exactly. Now, Onicom is the easiest way to not die in Shaper right now. And we only have 1 Stone Ship and this Lily Pad, which is a 1-up that just came down this early. Normally, you're trying to find it with your World Tree. But after the mulligan, we'll see how quickly that World Tree comes down, because that is generally the starting point for this deck to start doing the value crimes.
Yeah, of course.
Now, on the other side of the table, Erin, she started, iced up both those central servers, and now we're building remote, finishing on archives too, understanding that this is a World Tree deck. You can't make those cheap runs without risking hitting things like Saisantan and an enemy.
You need to prevent easy, successful runs, and that will affect, and especially before World Tree comes down, like now you can effectively shut that down.
Yeah. Now, card on the remote server, not advanced. We're looking at, of course, of Rashida. Prana Condenser is a big thing. It's actually what the deck list is named after.
That's true. The Devil Wears Prana. It's a good name.
As this thing gets power counters and you get credits if you deny net damage. So anytime that you can do net damage, you cannot, and instead get a power counter and 3 credits.
Yeah.
And so that is actually a win condition, because eventually that thing can just blow up and do mass damage based off of how much damage it's kind of accrued with power counters.
It delays the net damage until it can happen all at once, basically.
Now, the other econ option is Regolith Mining License. There's 2 of these in the deck. And this, if you've played any deck held up by Regolith Mining License, you're always so happy to get a whole turn taking 9.
We love a load-bearing Regolith Mining License.
So Erin's getting that up to 12 credits with, I believe, still 6 to boot. And on the other side, not too bad of economic start. We have the Lily Pad. We have the DZMZ Optimizer. Yeah. So that means we're going to be getting card draw and cheap installs. This deck is on 1 Aesop's Pawn Shop, and of course, has all the Muses and Coalescence, what you'd expect from Rebellion without Rehearsal Shaper. I don't know how you face check here. I think you need to find your killer. It's only an echelon. Oh, easy.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's your killer, and it came down cheaply, and it drew a card, so...
Yes. Now, echelon on its own in the early game is going to be a bit expensive. It's only at 1 strength and pretty prohibitive to install, to boost.
To boost the strength, for sure. And even something that's relatively low strength, like a Saisantan, still requires a little bit of a boost.
Yeah. So we'll see here if Terence can find the next program to get down. Again, there's a lot of programs in the deck, but not that many icebreakers.
Love that.
Dr. Nuka, great card draw. Again, a lot of times you'll see players keep power counters on Nuka to be able to use on a turn where you generally run early, take some net damage, and then have that recovery button. Yeah. But otherwise, kind of a sleepy start here. It looks like we don't have the World Tree. And after the mulligan, there are some play patterns where we can get the World Tree consistently. Obviously, Muse or SMC with things like Overclock or Trick Shot. But I don't know if we can see too much of Terence's hand. This does not seem like the explosive World Tree start. And with those credits coming in from the Regolith, Erin, she has the window to build a remote server. 2 ice can be tricky. That means a single self-modifying code or a single Muse won't break through it. And the cards that we're pushing on the table, if we want to get an early Sting, sometimes that's nice, or an early House of Knives.
House of Knives would be great, yeah. House of Knives is a very frustrating card, again, for a deck that wants to run a lot.
Yeah, this is Personal Evolution. We haven't mentioned it. That is the old FFG identity. That was a hard alt-art to get back in the day. Very,
I remember
pretty.
that. Yeah, it took me a while to get that.
And this, again, PE says, whenever you score or steal an agenda, you have to take 1 net damage. So all these cards like Sting or House of Knives now represents 4 damage. That's just 4 cards out of the deck.
Of course. Okay, there's the Muse. So what are we going to look for with the Muse?
It might just be a breaker, but actually I think probably Coalescence for Econ.
I think Coalescence makes sense because then it becomes like a 2-bite brownie for Aesops.
Yeah. Triggering Lily Pad first, you can do that. Now, it's not going to stop your Muse because you can still install from Grip, but luckily Coalescence on the bottom of the deck is coming in. You still have to pay the 2 credits for that, but this means if we get a Pawn Shop down or, of course, the World Tree, we have 2 targets to be able to push ourselves forward and give ourselves that Shaper economy. I don't know if you want to face check here. It's only 2 credits now. There is 4 still
face check
on
is
the
kind of scary right now. There's too much bad stuff that can happen, and I mean, I don't know what valuable things are in Terence's hand right now, of course.
Yeah, you have Simul Chips. You want to get those down. We have a DJ Finish for Steve in the mid to late game to get some cards back if you need it. And I think you actually can sit back a bit here. Erin with an unadvanced card, I think worst case is maybe a Rashida or a House of Knives, but if she actually wants to score to 7, it takes a bit of work. And the big trick that this deck can do is get a face down agenda in Archives and score Regenesis, which can be that 4-point play.
That could be a 4-point turn.
Okay, Pawn Shop coming down, that's going to be nice. That's the Muse Coalescence is now 6 more credits to sell to Aesop.
We've got an Econ engine.
And this is not too dissimilar. We saw Erin on the other side of this matchup playing Aesop's Shaper into Jinteki, and there's just a Sting.
So the math of this, I will never ever do correctly.
It's some sort of algebra with X.
Oh my goodness! Like I didn't take advanced calculus. I only took.
Okay. So it's going to be 1 damage plus 1 for the P ability. You have to do these separately. Probably won't matter in this matchup. There's no Onicom. There's no. I'm assuming we know there's not going to be any Steel Sin Scarrings.
Yeah, of course we're selling the empty Coalescence to Aesops.
But now that means if Terence ever finds a Sting, that Sting is now going to be 3 damage.
Yes.
Just to touch a 1-pointer.
3 damage if it happens to Terence, because it's increased by the amount of Stings in the other player's score area.
It's a sort of agenda where in the early game, you don't mind what happens to it. Either you get more lethality at the corp, or you get more lethality as the corp.
Yeah.
Thinking here, refilling her hand with the Dr. Nuka again. Not too many reasons to put pressure on. I think the biggest target here is actually the Regolith. This Jinteki deck doesn't have a lot of money if you can deal with the Piranhas and the Regolith, because it actually has no operations, no hedge fund, no Hansei, no subliminal. There is no way to get money besides the assets you need to put on the table.
You need to install things and then kind of spend the time on them to get the money from them. That's interesting.
Pair of DZs coming down. Most of our programs should be nearly free, and we'll see if we can find something. A Muse coming in for 0.
Sure.
We're going to go for the draw first and then just reinstall the Coalescence for the bin.
Oh,
now,
of course, yeah.
You can grab a Coalescence from the deck, but getting it from the bin actually gives you more hit points for a longer game, because this is not the sort of like 60 card Arsenal. It's only 47 card. Now, that being said, Eric,
because it's not thinning your deck.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this card Muse does everything. Grip, hand, stack, just wherever you want to take it from. Or grip, stack, hand. Grip is hand.
Grip
stack,
is hand.
bin, whatever. Miss Bones coming down. Heap.
Okay.
12 credits on Miss Bones. Now, Terence understands how good this card will be in the matchup. Not that we're trying to run so far, but where the deck is on mostly Sentries, 8 Sentries, and then only Diviners and Tattoo Bolas. That is a card you definitely need to get down if you want to start trashing Hostile Architectures and again,
he knows the entirety of her deck. He knows that she's all assets. So that Miss Bones is going to get a lot of value, assuming you can get through these ice.
Card on the remote server, taking some more money off the Regolith. So a second Sting is still only 2 damage, but this is where the House of Knives is a really nice transition for a 4 net damage push.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of little pings of damage.
But Terence has done great, just not running. We haven't seen a single run so far, just setting up this sort of like, again, I keep saying Euro board game of a Netrunner setup.
Yeah.
And we did just see this, and you can watch again between Mikhail and Erin in the Nationals. That we had the
Toronto Nationals
opposite swap, where Erin was playing Pawn Shop Shaper Lat into the setup of Mikhail putting out dangerous board states.
All right, so another Coalescence on the board.
Cheaply comes down. The DZs are doing a lot of work. They're firing just about every turn, and there's some self-modifying code. We actually have a lot of MU here. We should have
the
like
DZs
8.
and the lily pad give you +8 total, +4 total.
So that self-modifying code, that is the Montreal one. We had
the beautiful Montreal SMC.
Triple advance. Have some knives. Definitely what you want there.
Gross.
That's the original art.
Yeah, so 1 ping right now, and then 3 more pings
coming in later when they matter. Hitting a trick shot out of hand.
And that's the Scott Uminga Toronto Nationals trick shot. Love that one.
This is so scary. Like, trick shot's so interesting this matchup because sometimes when the trick shot happens, it's like the best thing for the Jinteki player. Because seeing more cards quicker can be the scariest thing. And you see there in Erin's hand, she still has another House of Knives, whether she's going to push it right away or whether she thinks she can build a board state and get that Prana ongoing. Because House of Knives Prana, that is the guaranteed way to give yourself credits and power counters.
Absolutely. Yeah, trick shot can be really scary. Like the Jinteki player sometimes might want you to do multi-axis because
touch more cards.
She's got lots of one pointers and is staying like these are bad cards to touch if you can't handle it.
And we're probably at the point where we're going to start aggressing. The self-modifying code means that Terence at instant speed can go grab a decoder or a fractor, whatever he needs. But the killer itself is the way that we're dealing with the worst face checks here. Anemone is a bit scary because that's going to be guaranteed 2 damage.
True.
And we're going to start with the trick shot once survived.
Yeah, you can go get a breaker to make the echelon a bit cheaper, whatever you want to do.
What's a really fun interaction is House of Knives and Arissana. Because Arissana can install Trojans from hand.
Yeah.
And technically, Arissana has a priority here. But as soon as you press priority, you can go for the House of Knives. And if you hit the Trojan that you're hoping to install when the ice is res.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, but then it just... Then Arissana just doesn't get to do her thing.
If you hit it. But you can always go first with Arissana, which now takes 2 cards out of your hand.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So... passing on Arissana, losing a sure gamble to the first House of Knives, and there's just a Tattoo Bola again. A low cost barrier, but doing so much work for Jinteki.
Yeah, it's not going to do much. We're going to use the credits from Trick Shot to go looking for a thing, a barrier
Should
breaker.
Be a cleaver, if I'm not mistaken. So that coming down is going to break for 1, and we'll see if Erin, she kept the ice in hand. So cleaver hitting the table. That will break it for 1, and that's the only barrier in the list. We don't see anything bigger. This deck actually has very low ice. And I mean, like, low strength ice. Cheap ice. So, like, we're not looking at Anansi's or Boltus or Vampiranasas. It's all just, like, the kind of small stuff.
Yeah. Also, it looks like the DZs helped pay for the cleaver.
Yeah.
It's the first program we installed this turn.
Yeah, it's super cheap. It's nice to pre-install your SMC so you don't burn it while installing the self-modifying code.
Yeah. You install the SMC second on the turn before.
Tattoo Bola swap again. You generally want to keep the ice on the table. Don't return it to hand, but I don't think there's any silly business here. And we'll see if we're going to see 2 cards here. We'll get 2 credits back on the trick shot. We can use those to challenge a Regolith.
That's true. We can
and top there's a
trash
Prana.
things if we want to, and maybe we want to.
That's an expensive card, and you can only use the Miss Bones credits on installed cards. Now, Rashida coming down feels pretty good here. We still have 1 credit left if we want to run the Regolith or whether we want to just walk away.
But now we know that a Prana is coming out.
Yes.
Something to play around, something to think about.
Yeah, that card, 1 to res, 4 trash cost. Not my favorite card, but it does so much work in this matchup. Trading, it feels like trading your win condition of damage to credits doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, this is the only ice that cannot be broken with the breaker suite we have right now. So the question is, how odd is your hand?
I love seeing this card's inclusion. Like, this was a card from Gateway that didn't see much play, maybe because everyone pronounces it differently. We've dropped something on the floor.
Yeah, so this card, like, once the Buzzsaw comes down, it gets broken for 1, but sometimes you just need that. You just need a bit of threat. You need to force them to find the breaker. This card's out of hand.
If Erin damages an odd costed card.
Yeah. That's even.
That's even.
0 is even. Cubon is getting thrown out, so now it's only 2 cards in hand.
It's funny we didn't know 0 was even until Netrunner came out.
I honestly, like, do you think 0 wouldn't be even? It feels so even to me.
Well, obviously it feels even because it's like 1 less than 1.
Yeah, that seems like the rule.
But that can't be the rule for even.
I think that's the rule,
Like, I'm not a mathematician.
Drawn up here. I think we have a pinhole that can really matter for the Prana. Miss Bones only for installed cards, and we did use 3 credits off there as a start, and I think we had 1 on the trick shot still.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Someone in the comments is really going to explain how 0 is even to us. Yeah. I'm not looking forward to it. I will read it.
Theory.
Oh, is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Prana now in hand. And with information, like, that's always the weird thing is when you know that the corporation drew an installable.
Yeah.
And obviously Erin knows that Terence knows. So can you install the House of Knives and hope it gets pinholed? Like, what the play patterns here are always so interesting.
Yeah. You can bait the. Well, I mean, would you bait a pinhole when every server is iced?
No. Maybe. No, probably not. If it's behind 2 ice, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah. And we know there's a Tattoo Bola in HQ. We're just clinging for credit, double installing. And I love 2 server gaming. 2 ice server gaming is the coolest Netrunner.
Exactly.
As much as it's not Atea, we saw some Atea already on day 1.
Yeah, I can see Atea saying, "Do you think I'm cool?" And you saying, "No, I don't think you're cool."
Second SMC hitting the table foil SMC. That was from Top Cut last year. Terence did great, as he usually does. And we'll see if we're going to challenge this. If we want to pull out a Buzzsaw, it is 6 credits and 1 more to break, as much as that's all the code gate. Generally, all the money you're going to spend breaking code gates for the rest of the game. Now, Anemone, House of Knives, there's a lot of triggers here you have to worry for. We're just going R&D. Generally, you want to be running early into Jinteki, so the rest of the turn you can draw up. Now, this deck is specifically with open deck list, not on Snare.
Another Diviner.
Gonna have to go for it. SMC.
Okay.
Gonna pay 2. It should be 4 more to get the Buzzsaw. Now, I think we ate the SMC install on the D set.
Yeah, the SMC was the first thing that came out. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so that's going to be a full cost buzzsaw. Now, you're not going to spend a lot of money breaking the ice in the deck. It's just now getting these programs down. That's generally the biggest speed bump.
Yeah, it's a gear check.
Yeah.
The runner doesn't want to keep running against the diviner because they're just going to get pinged. Sometimes it doesn't even work.
Now, Arisana's ability hasn't fired so far. There's actually not that many Trojans. That is text that will matter more once you get them the World Tree, because then you can install any program from your hand and just send it off.
And then it becomes World Tree fodder.
Yeah. But this is where, like, it's a 47 card deck, so it's not like a 60 card deck, but it is just playing fundamental, like, good stuff Shaper in a World Tree shell. And so far, the tree hasn't shown up. And honestly, I think if Terence draws a World Tree at this point, it might not be worth it.
No, because that's 6 credits right now. Like, yeah, the game is already underway.
It's doing its thing.
Yeah.
The question here is whether we want to use the House of Knives. You understand the most damage you can take from a single access on R&D is 3, if I'm not mistaken. That would either be Sting or Fuji.
That's right, because again, he knows there's no snares.
Yeah.
All right, so we're House of Knivesing.
We're going to go in for that. You generally ask for access.
What do we lose?
There's the
World Tree. Okay, so it's not getting installed.
And that's the last time you'll probably see World Tree.
Ever.
Well,
all right, folks. That's a series wrap on World Tree.
Cohort guidance program. Now, you can trash that for 2, another really great asset. We're going to start checking on the table here again. We do break that for 1. Now, we got all our breakers down, so everything just cost the amount of subroutines, and we found the Prana.
It's a Prana. Of course, we're just going to use Miss Bones' money.
That pre-installed Miss Bones, understanding how much value we're going to get for it. It shouldn't be hard to empty 6 from that. The question is now what's in the remote server, because we know where the Prana is. We found it. So what's behind door number 2?
Yep. Are we going to go for it? We have 11 credits.
It's hard to
We're
run
getting 3 more
click.
next turn. Yeah.
Now, the burst damage that Erin has, like, there's no punitive counter-strike. There's no way that you can take a lot of damage unless you have low cards in hand, and then you can, like, sometimes Blood in the Waters.
Blood in the Water is an easy way to get maybe the final damage, or maybe Blood in the Water is just easier to score. You don't want that.
It's technically a Neurospike if you have few cards in hand. It's cool.
A lot of things are technically Neurospike.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Just run up. Looks like the card remotes are not challenged there. We know that we have a cohort in hand, and Erin looks like she's going to tap that 3 times for 3 advancements. If we get another House of Knives, that's another
brutal
4 damage. And
it is another 4 damage.
So we're going to take 1 there at the start, but now anytime you run, you know you're going to lose 2 more cards, which means it's hard to access with more than 3 cards in hand unless you spend the early time drawing up.
Yeah.
Pinhole getting torched there.
Yeah, we've got 4 more net damage waiting between 2 Houses of Knives.
Yes, that's a lot of damage again. This deck does want to grind itself through. It wants to install and play all the cards in the deck.
What is the plural? Is it Houses of Knife?
Houses of Knives. Yeah.
Someone will let us know in the comments.
Math's
Yeah, probably.
Only 4 credits. Again, that's the snare math here. And you might be asking yourself, like, are there agendas in hand? I think if Erin, she had like a Fuji or I think that's probably it. Like, that's the hard agenda to deal with. Maybe a Blood in the Water. You could consider poking HQ to get some information. Yes. You do know there's a cohort there, but I think that's all you know.
Yeah, and interesting, we now know that we are in Regenesis Fuji range. Like, we need 4 points to win, and that is potential. Like, obviously, there's nothing face down in Archives, but, like, that could be the play that Erin needs to make to close the game.
Yeah, and if that's the case, you have to be very careful. If there's a face down in Archives and a card on the table, you want to be checking Archives, at least to get the flip up, and you will have to steal the agenda. Fuji, mind you, is not an additional cost. This is not Obokata Protocol. But it looks like we're actually going to get that Cubon on the ice on R&D there.
That's right.
SMC coming down. I imagine we might be getting a conduit and trying to go for some multi-access.
Yeah, we're checking our MU, of course. Even when we're at 8 MU, we should double check.
Yeah. It's very important you always check your MU. You actually can run into some problems that are really hard to fix.
Absolutely.
And it looks like it is.
The conduit. We are going for a multi-access.
This is hard. It's hard with
this
multi-access.
Is very hard because
Terence only
so
has
much scary
3
stuff.
cards in hand.
No.
You can't access here safely. If you take 1 House of Knives, you die to Fuji, you die to Sting.
Yep.
We're going to break in here. Again, you do get the Cubon back, but we don't have a lot of cards in hand. This can be quite risky. Erin, she's pushing those green cards back onto the side of the table they belong on.
Yeah, you get out of here. You're allowed to have 1 card on my side of the table.
Now, what's important is you can ask for access, and if the runner says access, they can't jack out, and then you have a paid-ability window to do things like House of Knives. Terence, I think he doesn't have a lot of cards in hand.
Yeah, he's thinking about this. Like, do I want to risk giving this? But, I mean,
there's
in for a penny.
Yeah, Terence's hands across the table. There's still Fuji. There's still Sting. There's a lot of ways this ends poorly.
Any cards that end up on Erin's side of the table are
And Erin only needs to do 1 net damage for some lethal hits to be here. 2 cards. It looks like we're set.
Fuji's
we have to access.
lethal, Sting is lethal, right?
Yeah. I think that's all that's lethal.
And then anyway, you don't want to take more net damage regardless. So
yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
Accessing on 2. There's definitely a couple things that hit you.
Well, that's one of the ones that hits you.
That's one of the ones that does damage.
One of the ones that does damage. And okay, yeah, this is bad. Huh. All right, folks, that's a wrap.
Sometimes it do be like that.
In there, do be like that. What are we checking for here? The stone ship or something? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. Like, you do need to get the conduit up. I think you just want to be running.
Ship is great for survival once you've got the lily pad out, too.
Like, with the nuke on the table there, you just want to be a bit safe and get as many axes as you can. At that point, I think we might have the economy to shut down the remote server DJ being on the bottom. You'd hate to see that, that's for sure.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
But unfortunately, taking some risks there, and it's not that likely you die. There's only so many options, but unfortunately, it was one of the 3 cards that does flatline you there. Remote server, we're going to see it's an anemone, and you do care about cards, but great, strong Shaper engine. At the end of the day, those cards need to be in the hand as opposed to the table. Well played to both players.
Yeah, you just got to make your R&D scary enough.
And that's just round 1. None of these players are going home.
Good round 1. Like, Terence has lost 1 life. But he's still alive at this point.
So this is double elimination. So both of these players are going to play on. That will put Erin in the upper brackets and Terence on the lower brackets. If he loses one more game, that will be the end of his NANPC run. But thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with round 2 in just a bit.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I just want to take a second to shout out a statistic that has been brought to my attention. This video is the 750th video up on this channel. That is an absolutely absurd number. We've been doing this for about 9 years, about 80 videos a year it comes down to. And if you asked me what the video count was, there's no way I would have said that. That is just totally buck wild. And 9 years ago, the channel, honestly, it started like this. I brought my first camera out to a regional just to film some gameplay, to get it up on YouTube, learn some motion graphics. And if you asked me in the summer 9 years ago whether there's going to be 749 more of these, I don't think I would have bet on it, which is absolutely wild because, again, 9 years later, I'm still having such a great time doing this. I want to give a huge thank you for those who've been watching the channel, whether this is your first video, whether you've been tuning into Métropole Grid now for 9 years. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm glad that you've been hopefully enjoying this as much as I have. So thank you so much. And of course, I want to give a huge thank you to all these names here and more. The Métropole Grid is supported on Patreon, and it gives me the ability to put the time and money into all the sort of stuff that makes this stuff happen. Whether it's the editing, the motion graphics, the licensing, the software, all this stuff takes a lot of time and it takes some money. And I'm very happy to be able to do this like this. And it's a huge thank you to all these names here. And of course, all of our daily cast patrons. Thank you so much. If you're looking to support Netrunner content like this, you can find a link in the description. Also, if you just want to take a second to like the video, that helps a heck of a lot. We are at 750 videos now. It's going to be about 3 years till we hit the next milestone on 1,000. And hopefully I'll see you in 3 years' time. Also, I want to give a huge thank you to Terence and to Erin. I've known these 2 players for also just about 9 years. The Torsaug Grid and Montreal, we go back. I've been traveling and playing games on both sides of the Ontario-Quebec border. It's just an absolute treat that we're, again, 9 years in, we still see the same friendly faces. So thanks so much. With that, we'll be back. We got more NANPC footage. This is just the beginning of the top cut. Our next video should be up on Monday, round 2. We're going to get into it. Again, we're only a couple weeks away from Worlds, which is incredibly hype. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you back in a bit.